A red door tag slaps and curls in the wind. Notice to vacate, 72 hours. Vines have swallowed the porch, green ropes clutching the rail. He hacks through them with a dull pruning saw until the teeth scrape metal. Under a mat of ivy, his fingers find a rusted handle, locked solid, stamped with a tiny triangle inside a circle. Across the street, a city inspector lifts a phone and snaps photos. The neighbor looks away. Lose this house? Lose the land his father left him. 3 days to clean up or prove it matters. In a coffee tin, a brass key. Same emblem. Tonight he opens it. The street light flickers as he peels back the first panel of ivy. You meet Mateo Rios at the quiet end of a night shift, when corridors hiss with mop water and machines breathe like sleeping animals. He's a hospital custodian who talks to floors and doorknobs the way some people talk to pets. Careful, patient, grateful when they behave. He keeps a pocket notebook of things that need attention. Fix loose hinge, oil squeaky cart, replace bulb in Oncology 3. He's good at tending what other people pass over. Home is a cramped, slant-floored bungalow that smells like cut grass and old coffee. A place he inherited from a man he barely knew. His father left him the deed and 4 words written on a napkin. Don't sell. Keep it. The napkin is thumb-soft now, tucked behind a cracked photo on the mantel. He keeps it there because he needs the order as much as the love. The yard is a jungle across 3 city lots, a green tide that rose while Mateo worked nights and slept through daylight. Vines run from fence to fence, blackberry brambles throw hooks, and a fig tree leans like a giant picking a lock. Notices piled up, fines stacked like coasters. And he kept telling himself he'd tackle it when the shifts calmed down. They never did. Grief didn't help. The wordless, gritty kind that comes after years of almosts with a father who lived 2 blocks away but stayed a stranger until the last voicemail. That machine still sits on the kitchen counter. Beige plastic. Glowing red number 1. Mateo won't erase it. The message is nothing dramatic, just his father clearing his throat and saying he left something important in the shed, that they should talk when you've got time, son. Then an awkward laugh, then a click. Time ran out faster than either of them knew. The inciting blow lands the same afternoon the inspector takes those photos. A neighbor petition, organized by the woman in the corner house, pushes the city to action. Public safety hazard, the letter says. Vermin, fire risk, property values. Mateo reads those words, standing on the porch while Ivy taps his ankle like a cat. He has 72 hours to bring the property into compliance, or the city will condemn and seize. Another page says there's an alternative. Show clear evidence the property has unique historical significance, and the process pauses. It's a lifeline knotted with bureaucracy. He has no savings to hire crews. He works nights. The fines already add up to more than his car. He stares at the paper until the words blur, and the only thing he can make out is his last name. Rios. The same name, stamped on a set of tools in a dented red box in the shed. He tries cleaning first. He hacks at vines until his forearms burn. He pulls trash from the soft ground. Old bottles, a rusted bike frame, a license plate with the year rubbed off. Under the shed window, the earth dips in a way that feels wrong, like a breath held. He pushes aside ivy, and the saw skates across curved metal. There's a handle. A wheel, really. Solid steel welded to a circular hatch. Faded yellow triangles ghost the surface, nearly eaten by rust. He presses his palm against the metal, and feels the cool of it, the way it seems to hum, even though there's no power anywhere near it. When he rubs the grime away, a symbol shows through, a circle with 3 blades. The old civil defense mark you still see on fallout shelter signs in forgotten basements. He remembers the napkin, the voicemail, the word important. He goes to the toolbox and finds nothing that looks like a key, only sockets and screwdrivers, a tape measure, and that coffee tin his father used for screws and dead batteries. The tin rattles with junk. At the bottom, a brass key on a length of baling wire, head stamped with that same small emblem. The inspector's car creeps by again and idles at the curb. Another photo, a scribble on a clipboard. A neighbor waves, then lets her hand fall when he looks. Mateo tests the key in his palm. It's heavier than it looks, cold against his skin. He could hide all of this and hope an extension buys more time. He could give up, let them take the land and pretend it never mattered. Here's the thing. He doesn't want to save the property just because it's property. He wants to keep the last link, thin as thread, to a man he finally started to understand through a single awkward message. He wants to leave the napkin on the mantel and not feel like he failed it. The notice offers a hinge, historical value. If the emblem on the hatch means what he thinks it means, the hinge might hold. He calls work and swaps a shift. He eats cold rice, rinses his hands until the dirt stops bleeding into the sink, then sits on the porch steps and listens to the neighborhood crackle into evening. Kids call to each other. A dog barks. A sprinkler ticks. The streetlight over the corner buzzes, flares, and settles into a weak glow. He looks at the hatch again, now half exposed, like an eye opening. The key waits in his pocket, and with it, a decision that feels like stepping onto a narrow bridge. He doesn't text anyone. He doesn't call a friend to keep him company. Some doors you open alone, because the person you need to meet on the other side is a version of yourself you've been avoiding. Night gathers. The porch shadows stretch and swallow the steps. He takes a breath, stands, and goes to lift the last heavy panel of ivy. You feel the air cool as you step under the fig tree's reach, the leaves ticking together like coins. Mateo pulls the last mat of ivy free, and the hatch sits bare. A steel circle sunk into earth that settled around it like tired shoulders. The faded triangles are there, yellow ghosts against rust. He wipes the seam with an old rag until grit grinds in his teeth. He kneels, slides the brass key from his pocket, and studies the lock plate. Same emblem, same proportions. The key slips in like it remembers the path. The first turn resists, teeth catching on corrosion. He leans into it. Metal complains. His hand shakes. On the second turn, something gives with a brittle snap. A breath of stale, cold air slips through the seal and brushes his face. He hesitates, listening. The neighborhood is a hum. Out beyond the fence, a car door shuts, then opens again. Laughter. A night bird. No footsteps on his side of the street. He fits his palms to the wheel and turns. The weight is real. Satisfying like a safe you shouldn't know how to open. The wheel breaks loose. He lifts. Hinges shriek, then settle into a damp, old whisper. Under the hatch, a throat of darkness yawns. A metal ladder disappears into it, each rung furred with dust. Somewhere below, a faint hum. Not a machine you recognize, more like a refrigerator left unplugged for years that still imagines it's working. He aims his headlamp down, concrete walls, painted numbers by the rungs. 6, 7, 8. He tastes iron. He could close it, call someone, decide daylight is smarter. Instead, he clips the lamp strap tight and swings his foot onto the first rung. The ladder flexes but holds. He descends slowly, counting under his breath because it keeps his pulse from outrunning him. 10, 11, 12. The air gets colder and drier. He smells dust, old paper, that mineral hospital smell he knows too well, without the bleach. At the bottom, his boot meets concrete. The beam finds a narrow corridor, 6 feet tall, 3 feet wide, painted a color you'd call beige if beige could go gray with age. The floor is clean where the dust settled, undisturbed in long ovals like sleeping animals. The hum is stronger here, not loud but constant. He turns and sees a metal door to the left with stenciled letters, black on white. Utility. Do not enter. He plants his palm on it and feels a faint vibration, the kind you get when you touch old conduit warmed by a trickle. Above the handle hangs a small padlock, rusted shut. To the right, the corridor bends. He follows it, hand trailing the wall to keep himself steady, beam tight on the floor to watch for holes. The bend opens into a room. He stops in the doorway and feels the shape of the space before he catalogs it, long and low. 2 rows of bunks, 3 high, canvas slings sagging with age. A table with folding chairs around it, one tipped on its side. A chalkboard with the bones of a fallout drill timetable still ghosting across it. Arrival, assignment, water ration, sanitation. On the far wall, a shelf of tins stacked like a pantry built by a stern aunt. Civil defense manuals in a neat row, all dated 1962. Their covers faded but legible. His beam catches a label, peaches, light syrup. He reaches for it because he can't help it. The lid is dusty, but something bright catches at the edge. A strip of tape, the paper kind that frays. Under the tape, a note on lined paper, the pencil gone soft with time. For whoever finds this, leave it better. He reads it twice, then swallows around the ache that note puts in his throat. He sets the can back exactly where it was. On the table, a Geiger counter squats like a little suitcase with a meter. He flicks the toggle because curiosity beats caution by an inch. The needle twitches, a low, polite tick-tick in the quiet. Not nothing, not trouble either. He turns it off, sets it down, and listens to his breath resettle. He moves toward the shelves, scanning paper for dates, names, anything that could be proof. He finds a binder marked Shelter 7, Roster, but it's empty, just dividers and a dust print where a hand once rested. Next to it, a laminated map of the city with little blue dots, each labeled with numbers and letters he doesn't understand yet. He rolls it gently, tucks it under his arm. He doesn't take photos, not yet. He wants to see first. The hum deepens, then clicks, and he turns because the sound came from the utility door. A soft relay snap, then a stutter. Overhead, a line of long tubes flicker. One after another, dim light sputters to life like fish rolling at the surface. For a breath, the room glows. The bunks become beds again. The manuals turn into instructions, not relics. At the far corner, a small panel blinks weakly. Somebody rigged a battery to sip at whatever trickle still comes down here. Then the light steadies. Not bright, but enough. Mateo cuts his headlamp to save it and stands, absorbing the place with both eyes. There's a water drum, blue and stout, marked drinking. A row of cardboard sanitation kits, the kind you hear about in stories, never expect to see. On the wall, stenciled capacity numbers, 48 persons, 2 weeks. It's not myth. It's a room that expected fear and made a plan. Above him, a car door slams, not laughter, a single, efficient sound. He freezes. The hum of the city shifts. Boots on gravel? Maybe. He edges back to the corridor and clicks the headlamp off. In the dim fluorescent, shadows are softer. He stands still enough to hear the ducks speak. The click of another car door. A throat cleared. A phone camera chirp. The inspector doing an early drive-by, or a neighbor curious enough to come close. He holds his breath until his ribs protest. He counts to 10 the way his father taught him on the one fishing trip they managed. Breathe slow. Count. Wait. Choose. Noise fades. A car engine turns over. Idles. Rolls away. He doesn't move for another count of 10. Back in the main room, the light pulsing from the panel dips. The relay clicks again, weaker. He steps to the utility door and checks the lock. No give. He kneels at the baseboard where conduit disappears, traces it with his fingers, follows it along the wall to a metal tag pinned to a junction box. The tag is stamped, not printed. Property of City Department, 14. He runs his thumb over the numbers and feels the old indentation of a hand tool. Department 14. It sounds like a joke someone forgot to tell. He slips the tag's small screw free with a coin from his pocket because he can't leave everything. He pockets the thin metal like a clue torn from a book. The lights flutter, then die back to his headlamp's pale cone as he clicks it on again. The room shrinks. The hum thins. He stands in the quiet and feels the weight of what he's seen settle from idea to proof. He climbs the ladder slow, one rung at a time, the tag warm in his pocket from his palm. At the top, he pauses with his head just under the hatch, listening. The night sounds ordinary. A sprinkler ticks. A television laughs 2 houses over. The inspector's car is gone. He eases the hatch down, turns the wheel until the seal kisses home, and lays Ivy back over the seam with careful hands. On the porch, under the unreliable streetlight, he unwraps the metal tag and reads it again. Department 14. The emblem, the manuals, the note about leaving it better. He doesn't have the language yet, but he has the story's bones. He locks the shed, pockets the key, and sits on the top step until the cold finds his back and convinces him to move. Somewhere inside, an answering machine blinks. One red dot in a dark kitchen. He thinks of that voice, and the next breath he takes feels steadier. Tomorrow, he'll need more than steady. Tomorrow, he'll need names. Tonight, he has a door, a room, and a clue that someone once expected the city to remember. Morning comes like a hangover. You eat toast over the sink and stare at the tag again. Property of City Department, 14. If that means what it sounds like, there's a paper trail somewhere. Paper trails don't care how much ivy is on your fence. They care about stamps and signatures. You walk into the municipal records office with dirt still under your nails. The lobby smells like toner and floor wax. A clock ticks loud enough to feel petty. Behind glass, a clerk with a plastic name badge flips a stack of forms that could stun an ox. You slide the tag across the counter like a chip in a high-stakes game. Looking for records tied to this, you say. Old Civil Defense Division, maybe. Department 14. She squints at the metal, then at you. We don't have a Department 14. It's stamped, you say. City property. She types with 2 fingers, shoulders rising with each key. We have building, public works, utilities, parks, historical. She pauses. No 14. If it existed, it's decommissioned. Those records, if they exist, are in storage off-site or destroyed. You can file a request. It takes 6 to 8 weeks. You breathe through the number. I have 72 hours. She softens a notch. If you need help with code compliance, I need proof the site's historic. She shrugs in a way that says she's seen worse, and worse didn't make it. Try the newspaper archives or the Historical Society, but officially, no Department 14. You pocket the tag and the thin hope it represented. Outside, the sun feels hostile. On the corner, Mrs. Klein stands at her mailbox like a sentry. She's the neighbor who started the petition, the one who measures property values with a ruler. She's in tennis clothes, visor just so, a dog at her ankle wearing a bandana that matches her shoes. I saw a car late, she says without hello. From the city, inspection. You shouldn't ignore those. I didn't, you say. They did a drive-by. She looks past you at the yard. This is a nuisance, Mateo. It's not just the weeds. I hear sirens in my head when I look at your lot. Do you understand? The drills, the crawling under desks. People get nervous about underground hazards. Shelters, you say, testing the word between you. Her jaw tightens. Whatever it is, it's not safe. I have grandchildren. There's talk about contamination. You should do the right thing and let the city handle it. There's no contamination, you say, too fast. Her eyebrows arch like they've been waiting. It's not what you think. I think it's a mess, she says, voice precise. And mess invites trouble. We're all watching. She turns, then tosses a parting shot over her shoulder. And a little advice? Don't try to play historian to dodge a mowing ticket. On your porch, an anonymous flyer flutters under a rock. Toxic site next door. Your address in bold. Someone slipped it to every house on the block. The paper feels cheap. The kind used for rumors. You fold it in half until the words disappear. You go back down. The hatch gives like it's learning your touch. The air is cooler than morning. In the comms room, you run your fingers under the desk lip and find a small lockbox drawer you missed. It's stuck, swollen with time. The brass key scrapes, resists, then turns like it remembers. The drawer slides open with a shudder and a breath of paper. Letters. Dozens, bound with twine gone brittle. Maps with pencil lines and grease smudges. A folder labeled Shelter 7, Maintenance, 1983 to 1989. Your father's last name in neat block letters on the first page. Rios, volunteer custodian. You sit on the bunk like a student and start to read. The letters are between your father and a city engineer whose signature is all loops and confidence. Thank you for keeping the pumps primed. Off books. Budget froze again. The committee dissolved. We were told to stand down. Keep the hatches sealed. I'll bring batteries when I can. A P.S. about a spare key in the coffee tin makes your scalp prickle. There's a hand-drawn map of your block with a circle around your yard. Shelter 7. Arrows to utility runs. A note in your father's slanted print, still dry after last rain. Battery trickle holds light 14 minutes. Replace cells 1186. You turn another letter and hit something tender. It's from your father, dated in the late 80s, to the engineer. He writes about being a kid during the drills, about a teacher who made the countdown sound like a lullaby, about a basement where he hid from men shouting upstairs. We learned to be quiet, he writes. We learned to wait for the all clear that never came. This place felt like a promise the day I found it. If no one else cares, I'll keep it ready. You hold the paper like it might burn you. You didn't know this voice. Your father as a boy. Your father as a caretaker. Your father telling someone why he did the things he did without telling you. There's a maintenance log with dates and initials. Rios, Rios, Rios. Oil hinges. Replace drought kit. Check filter. A column labeled City Department 14. Approval stays blank after 1969. The notes keep going anyway. Off books, like the letter said. If anyone questioned him, they didn't put it on paper. You shoot photos now. Careful. Angled to catch letterheads, dates, signatures. You photograph your father's handwriting until your hand shakes. You photograph the map and the tag together, like puzzle pieces that finally touch. You tuck the most fragile items back in the drawer and slide it shut. Back upstairs, your phone buzzes with nothing from the Historic Preservation Office. Inbox empty except for advice from strangers you didn't ask for. You draft an email anyway. Subject: Potential Municipal Civil Defense Shelter. Documentation attached. You attach the photos, the map, the tag. You explain in plain words. Inherited property. Found a sealed shelter marked with the civil defense emblem. Documentation suggests city involvement. Department 14. You ask for a site visit. You ask for a pause on condemnation. You click send and feel like you dropped a coin into a well. On the sidewalk, two teenagers laugh at the flyer someone taped to your fence. Toxic, one reads. Sweet. They move on. You pull the paper down and stack it with the others you've collected from your neighbor's bins. The pile grows like a paper tumor. The inspector idles again, window down. Mr. Rios, he calls. Accelerated hearings on the table. Imminent hazard designation. I emailed preservation, you say. There's a shelter. City-made. I have letters. He lifts a hand like he's deflecting weather. That's not my lane. My lane is code. Clear the overgrowth. Secure the site. It is secured, you say, jaw tight, by a hatch that held 60 years. He looks at the yard, then at your face. Something flickers, a thought he's not allowed to have. Clock still running. You nod because all the other options involve shouting. When he leaves, you lock the hatch, coil a chain through the handle, snap a new padlock, then run fishing line through old eyelets and hang bells that chime at the slightest tug. It's primitive, but sometimes primitive is honest. You text no one and tell the answering machine you're listening. Before dark, you sit on the porch and open one more letter. Your father again. He writes about sirens at noon, the Wednesday tests that made the dog howl. He writes about hiding, yes, but also about coming out, about the dignity of sweeping a floor no one will see, about leaving something better than he found it because someone left him enough to survive once. He signs it with his first name, and for the first time all day, you say it out loud. It lands softer than you expected, and it stays. Time is a drip you can hear. You gamble on noise. You post 3 photos to a local history forum, a civil defense manual cover, a ration crate corner with 1962 stamped in ink, and the laminated city map with blue dots blurred just enough to hide your block. Caption: Found intact materials tied to municipal shelter program. Seeking guidance on documentation. Within an hour, comments stack like bricks. Half nostalgia, half warnings. One user writes, "That looks like the real thing." Another asks for the address. You don't answer that. You answer the person who says, "Preservation law is tricky, but possible." You refresh until your thumb goes numb. Then a message lands in your inbox from a freelance journalist. They've been chasing Cold War sites around the region. They claim a record for playing fair. Coffee, they offer, off the record until you say otherwise. You agree to meet at a diner 2 neighborhoods away, where no one knows your face. The journalist arrives with a notebook and a quiet way of asking questions that doesn't feel like an interrogation. You talk about the notice, the bunker, the tag, the letters. You name your father. You don't name your street. You let them see one photo of his handwriting and the map corner that proves municipal intent. Why risk going public, they ask. Because the clock is faster than the paperwork, you say. If people care, maybe the city hesitates. They nod like they understand how city clocks work. If I publish, we'll need something I can stand on. I'll give you the document's edges, you say, not the heart. Not yet. When you get home, the bells on the improvised alarm look fragile in late light. You test the line, hear the soft chime, and sleep on the couch with the back door cracked to catch any sound. Sometime after midnight, the bells tangle in dream, then turn sharp, metal on metal. You jerk up, barefoot to the yard, hose over your shoulder like a tail. At the hatch, a new padlock lies in the dirt, split clean by bolt cutters. The chain's been threaded, half rewrapped in haste. The hatch sits a 1/4 inch proud of the seal. 2 boot prints mark the ground beside it, fresh, the tread like a grid. The air smells faintly of cigarettes and something chemical. Your chest tightens with an old kind of fear, the kind that moves through your body before your mind gives it permission. You check the yard. No one in the corner shadows, the alley quiet. You relock the chain with the spare padlock and lash the wheel with a length of old bike cable. You rethread the line and add another set of bells, louder this time. Then you pull your sleeping bag to the back door and sleep with one eye open, counting cars by the sound of their tires until dawn. Morning makes everything look solvable. You drop into the bunker and trace the conduit from the utility door along the ceiling. It runs like a vein into a small room you hadn't noticed. Panel shut, a hand-lettered label peeling. You pop the latch and find a hand-cranked generator bolted to a steel plate. Its paint chipped but solid. The handle is folded in. You breathe out a thank you to anyone who thought of redundancy. You open the oil cap, sniff, not rancid. You pull the handle and feel the belt bite. You crank slow at first, then steady, a rhythm you can hold. The lights hesitate, then rise. Low amber, then a brighter hum. In the main room, tubes glow, and the bunker feels alive again. You keep cranking, and the weak panel on the far wall blinks to a fuller pulse. With light, more reveals itself. A steel cabinet reads, CD Communications in stencil. Inside, a field phone with a cloth-wrapped cord, a coil of wire, a laminated card with numbers. Next to it, bound logbooks with pencil entries that start crisp and end faint. You open the top book and read an entry from October 1962. Shelter survey completed. Council briefed. Dots confirmed. Someone underlined, confirmed twice. You flip forward. The entry's thin by 1969. After that, the handwriting changes hands, then stops. It's a record of an idea that slowed, then went quiet. You run a finger down a list titled Test Calls. Numbers for sites labeled S1 through S12. The ink breaks at S7. Your place. It's the only line with your block's shape, penciled small in the margin. You take a photo, angled to catch the date and the label. Your phone chirps with a calendar alert you set after the records office. Hearing moved up to discuss imminent hazard. They accelerated anyway. You stop the crank. Test the field phone. No service, but a clean click when you press the talk bar. You trace the wire to a bell box by the ladder, and a thought clicks into place. If someone forces the hatch, you can trigger this bell to send sound up through the shaft. A primitive alarm that beats bells on string. You tuck that idea away like a tool. Upstairs, the journalist calls. I think I can get this out by tonight, they say. Without your address, with the documents blurred, as a story about a potential municipal shelter in private hands, facing condemnation. Interested? Only if you state that I asked for a site assessment, you say, and that I offered supervised access. Done. You hang up and feel equal parts relief and worry. Visibility draws help and harm in the same net. By late afternoon, the story is live. Your phone buzzes nonstop. Comments flood. Save it, shut it, sell it, sue. A few call you a hoarder, a threat, a trespasser in your own yard. You breathe, count to 10, and focus on the line in the article that matters most. Preservation Office contacted for comment. At dusk, your phone finally rings with the number you'd been staring at since yesterday. The Historic Preservation Office speaks in measured tones. We've seen the piece, the officer says. If the documentation is as you describe, you may have an eligible resource. We can request a 72-hour site assessment stay. I'll take 48, you say, heart pounding. Whatever you can give. 48 granted. We'll come by morning after next. You thank them and hang up. The breathing room is thin, but it exists. You write the new time on the front of the condemnation notice with a felt tip, like it's a court order carved in stone. Night drops hard. You drink water and try to eat, but nerves make food taste like chalk. You loop the yard twice, checking lines, locks, weak fence spots. The street feels emptier than usual, like news made people retreat behind curtains. Near midnight, another sound at the fence, faster, brash. The bells jangle full on, a metal shout. You sprint, flashlight punching a hole in dark. The padlock on the hatch is intact, but the fence gate, a simple latch, hangs open, the chain cut clean. Your light catches a silhouette, slipping down the alley, then gone. You reset the latch, add a second chain, and wedge a rake through the handle, as if that could deter intent. Back inside, you sit at the kitchen table, dial the field phone's bell circuit by running a wire to a switch you can slap with your palm. You test it. Above, the bell pings, sharp as a coin dropped on tile. A simple signal to say, I'm here. I hear you. In the bunker, you squeeze one more discovery out of the day, because fear hates unfinished tasks. Behind the comms cabinet, a shallow drawer hides under a lip of metal. Inside, a stamped index card that reads, City Council, Shelter Survey, with the same date as the logbook. Someone signed it in block letters, and the signature matches the engineer who wrote to your father in the 80s. You snap a photo while your hands remain steady, then slide the card back, exactly as found. Upstairs again, your phone pings. The journalist. Heads up. Comments lit a fire. One person claims to know your address. Another says the shelter should be filled with concrete. Then, I pushed this line. city obligation to document its own history. Also, preservation confirmed the stay. You text back a thank you and set your own silent alarm in your head. 2 more nights. 2 more chances for things to go wrong and for people to do what people do when something hidden becomes seen. You coil the hose. You secure the hatch again. You sit on the porch and count down from 10. Slow. When you reach 1, you listen. The night doesn't reassure you, but it doesn't threaten either. Between those two, you can work. Morning smells like wet metal and cut vines. You use the 48 hours like borrowed lungs. If this place survives, it won't be because you found it. It'll be because you show why it matters to more people than you. You call the preservation office and speak to the officer who granted the stay. Her voice is clear, clipped, careful with promises. Dr. Anika Shah, she says. I'm coming personally. We'll document, not endorse. That distinction is important. You swallow the need to sound worthy. You'll have safe access. I'll be there the whole time. Good, she says. Photograph, catalog, and please don't rearrange before we arrive. Context is evidence. You hang up and look around your kitchen. You've built a nervous system of lists across sticky notes. Hatch secure. Letters copied. Conduit traced. Field phone wired to bell. You add one more. Story. Not just stuff. Dr. Shah arrives with a tablet, a binder, and a roll of blue painter's tape. She's compact, alert, eyes taking in the house, the yard, the neighbor's curtains shifting. We'll work fast, she says, and we'll do it right. You walk her to the hatch. Her breath fogs slightly in the cool. She studies the faded triangles, the emblem, the wheel. If this pans out, it's a rare intact example, she says, almost to herself. Municipal program, private custody, continuous stewardship. That combination doesn't come along often. Below, lights hum to low life when you crank. She watches your hands, then points to the panel. Tape marks go near items we catalog. Photos wide, then close, then detail. We don't move anything until we record position. Together, you work the room methodically. She hands you numbers. You echo them. Water drums, stamped with capacity. Sanitation kits with intact seals. Fallout maps, folded on a shelf where dust shows they haven't moved in decades. Civil defense armbands, cloth gone soft, ink still sharp. She notes condition with words that feel like triage, stable, brittle, delaminating. At the table, you slide the letters toward her. She reads the letterheads, the signatures, the dates. She taps a page. This engineer, their sign-off matches a council index I remember from a survey project years ago. That could be our provenance if we find the partner document. You show her the stamped tag and the map with blue dots. She photographs both, careful to include your hand holding them for scale. Department 14, she says. I thought that was a ghost story, an internal committee that went dark when funding did. If it existed, it was a sub-body, not a formal department, which is exactly where records go to disappear. She asks you why you're fighting this hard. The question lands sideways. Because my dad kept it when nobody asked him to, you say. Because he hid during drills as a kid and decided that if he could make a room in the ground feel ready, he would. Because the last thing he said to me was that he left something important in the shed, and I spent too long convincing myself he meant tools. She looks at the bunks, then at you. This is why stories hold sites together when paperwork tries to let go, she says softly. Not nostalgia. Motive. Continuity of care. Under the bunk nearest the comms cabinet, you pry up a loose floor plank that had bothered your foot last time. The edge sticks, then gives. A shallow cavity yawns, dry and surprisingly neat. Inside, a stack of Polaroids wrapped in wax paper and secured with twine. You unwrap them with both hands, careful not to smudge. The first image shows this room lit bright, clean as a stage. A calendar pinned to the wall with a date you can read. Each Polaroid holds a newspaper front page, held beside the same bunk. Date lines from the 60s through the 80s. Proof of continuity. Proof of time. Dr. Shaw smiles with real excitement that she tries to keep professional. This is gold, she says. On-site images with date verification. These can anchor interpretation. Whoever did this knew what future proof looks like. She flips a few images and stops at one where the hatch stands open. Sunlight, like a blade through dust. A hand holds the paper. The hand is strong and work-worn. A scar across the knuckles you recognize. You don't say it's your father's, but your breath tells on you. She glances at you and doesn't press. Instead, she slips a card divider between the images and notes location on her tablet. Upstairs, noise gathers. Mrs. Klein appears at the fence with a lawyer in tow and a folder of signatures. "We want this entered into the record," the lawyer calls from the gate, voice pitched to carry. "Public nuisance, underground hazard, immediate abatement requested." Dr. Shaw steps up into the yard, badge visible, tone even. "This is an active assessment. Please keep distance from the hatch. We're documenting potential cultural resources." Mrs. Klein doesn't look at you. She looks through you. "We have children on this block. I told you. Sirens, fear. You can't set up a museum in a backyard. Not a museum, you say, before you can stop yourself. An easement. A micro-museum component by appointment. Grounds maintained. Access controlled. I can draft a plan. Limited hours monthly. Supervised tours with volunteers. I'll keep the yard cut. I'll meet all safety upgrades. The bunker becomes an asset, not a threat." Her lawyer produces a grim smile. "That's generous, Mr. Rios, but unenforceable without city action." Dr. Shaw's eyes narrow, not unkindly. He's describing a conservation easement with interpretation. It's enforceable if adopted, and it can coexist with neighborhood needs. We recommend emergency review for landmark consideration. I'll file the memo. Mrs. Klein wavers, caught between the lawyer's script and the authority in Dr. Shaw's calm. "It's a hole in the ground," she says, but the force goes out of it a degree. Back below, Dr. Shaw pulls a thread you missed. Department 14 appears in these letters until 1969, then stops. The Civil Defense Committee was disbanded around then in many cities. If we link that to council minutes and your engineer's survey, we can draw a line from municipal origin to volunteer stewardship. She looks at you. That's a compelling arc. You nod at the word arc because you feel like you've been pushing a heavy door uphill and she just wedged her shoulder under it beside you. What happens next? "I write fast," she says. An emergency landmark status review can be set before the condemnation clock runs again. It won't solve your fines, but it pauses the seizure. Conditions will apply. Maintenance, access, safety. You ready for that? You don't answer with words at first. You look at the bunks, the manuals, the note about leaving it better. I've been getting ready for it without knowing. You say, finally. Tell me what to do. She tapes a blue square on the utility door and takes one last wide shot. Tonight, secure the hatch. Document any interference. Draft your narrative in plain language. Why this site matters to this city, not just to you. You walk her out. At the gate, Mrs. Klein's lawyer hands over the petition like a threat. Dr. Shaw takes it, files it behind a more official folder, and says, "See you at the hearing." When she's gone, you stand alone in the trimmed rectangle of yard you carved out of chaos. The hatch looks smaller in daylight, but heavier with meaning. You think of the boy your father was, counting under desks, and the man he became, counting hinges. You sit on the porch step with a legal pad and write, "It's not about fear. It's about how people prepared to help each other survive." Then you underline, "help each other," because that's the part you want them to hear. You try to sleep, but the mind keeps inventory like a night nurse. 2 more pages for the hearing. 1 more coil on the hose. Then the bell alarm stutters. 1 sharp jangle, then another. Not wind, not a cat. You're up and moving before thought, shoes half on, flashlight in hand. At the hatch, 2 figures crouch, backs hunched in the low light. One wears a contractor's vest you've seen next door. The other keeps watch at the fence, whispering into a phone. Your beam hits their shoulders and they flinch, then turn stubborn instead of running. "Public safety," the vest says, as if that phrase gives him a badge. He lifts a caulk gun loaded with epoxy, nozzle jammed at the seam. You can't keep an underground hazard open. "It's sealed," you say, stepping closer, heart skittering. "It's documented. There's a stay." "Stay isn't permanent," the lookout replies. "Tomorrow they take it. Tonight we make sure no one gets hurt." "You mean make it uninsurable," you say, before you can file the words down. The vest looks past you to the dark kitchen window, calculating. "Call the police," you add, louder for the night to hear. "Let them explain why they're gluing a city asset shut." The lookout grabs your wrist as you reach for your phone. You twist free, the old reflex from keeping rowdy visitors out of oncology. The caulk gun squeezes and a gray bead snakes along the hinge. You lunge and knock the barrel aside. Epoxy squirts across the wheel, stringing thick like spider silk. "Back off," the vest warns. "Then leave," you say. His hand dips to his pocket and throws something small and bright, a flare, hissing as it arcs. It lands in dry weeds along the fence and takes root in seconds, a rattlesnake-colored glow licking upward. Heat breathes on your face. The lookout swears, and for a beat, they both stare like boys who just broke a window. You drop the flashlight, grab the hose, and drag it hard, the rubber snagging on roots. The spigot fights you, then coughs. Water sputters, then steadies, and you slap your thumb over the mouth to widen the spray. The first pass turns flame to steam, but embers hook into the fence line like fish. You sweep again, backing the fire down, heart beating so loud it feels like a third step in the yard. Over the hiss, the bell alarm dings. Light, confused. You glance back. The vest has popped the hatch a finger width. He wedges the nozzle in to glue from inside. The lookout, thinking faster than you want, slips his boot under the wheel and pries just enough to slide through. "No," you hear yourself say, plain and final. You drop the hose, grab the wheel, and yank. The lookout disappears into the throat. The vest stumbles toward the fence, weighing fight against run, then scales it, drops into alley shadow, and vanishes. You turn the wheel. It spins against epoxy grit, rough but willing. You throw the hatch open and bite your fear in half. The ladder receives your weight. You go down fast enough to forget to count. Then remember, check your grip, and descend with purpose. The field phone's bell circuit waits, wired to a switch you can slap. Darkness thickens in the first turn, your headlamp jittering because your hand does. You steady the beam and listen. Echoing steps ahead. One man, not two. He's breathing hard. He took a risk, and now he's lost the map. You find the panel with your fingertips and hit the switch. Upstairs, the bell pings. A sharp, bright ring. Again. Again. A signal to the street that something is wrong. You picture porch lights flipping on. A neighbor startled into dialing. The journalist's voicemail surviving a message if nothing else does. Your breath wants to sprint. You make it walk. You hear your father's voice in memory, a sound you held on to because there was so little of it. Breathe slow, son. Count to 10. Choose. You inhale, exhale, number each to keep your body from making decisions your mind can't afford. At the comms room door, you see his shoulder first, broad under a canvas jacket as he fumbles at the cabinet. He's yanking the logbooks, but the twine holds, trembling between his hands. Your light slashes across the stencil. CD communications. He spins, one hand raised against the beam. Put it back, you say, calm you do not feel. It's trash, he spits, but it's not conviction, it's script. His eyes flick to the exit, then to your hands. We're preventing liability. By destroying evidence, you answer. That's a choice you'll have to own. He steps forward and your chest tightens, not with fear this time, but with anger drawn thin as wire. He's bigger. You're boxed by bunks and metal. You glance at the field phone mounted on the wall. You lift it slow and thumb the talk bar. It doesn't dial out to a line, but the bell circuit you rigged upstairs still listens. Say it again, you tell him, so the street can hear. He sneers like you said a joke wrong. Then he reaches fast for the logbooks. You move faster, pivoting your shoulder into his arm the way a custodian learns to keep a dresser from falling. The logbooks wobble, then settle. He swears and shoves you toward the bunks. Canvas gives and the whole rack shudders. Stop, you say, the bell pinging above like a heartbeat. Somewhere distant, sirens answer, faint, questioning. You tip your face toward the ceiling just enough to know you heard right. He hears it too. He glances up, calculates again, then throws words like gravel. You don't win this, he says. They hired us to make it uninsurable before morning. You think a story saves a mess? Money saves it, or buries it. Same thing. Who hired you? You press the talk bar hard enough to blanch your thumb. You hold your phone with your other hand, already dialing the journalist's line. Voicemail picks up in seconds. You tap speaker, lay the phone on the table between you, and nod at it. He regrets the sentence as soon as it leaves his mouth, but it's out. A name you won't repeat here. Tied to a city contract and a neighbor's private list. They said take care of it, he growls. Make sure insurance won't touch it. Then the city can call it unsafe and close the book. The field phone bell pings upstairs like applause you didn't expect. The sirens grow louder, turning toward your block. He hears the shift in pitch and goes for the ladder, shoulder first. You don't try to stop him. You step aside. You're not a bouncer. You're a witness. The job matters. He scrambles up in a clatter, boots slipping on dust, knocks his elbow hard on the rim, hisses, then runs. You climb after at a pace that keeps information in your hands. The look of his jacket, the brand on his boot, the smell of unfiltered smoke. You lift your head into cool air and night, stung by recent fire. Firefighters pour through the gate you left unlatched for the miracle moment you hoped for and dreaded. A neighbor points, the bell still ringing, your hose coiled like a testimony. The fence is charred in a black kiss where the flare bit. Steam hangs low and gray. Your hatch sits open, epoxy strings torn, scratches fresh on the wheel. "Anyone below?" a firefighter asks. "Just me," you answer. "And history." They blink at that, but move with the competence of people used to sorting human mess from physics. One peels off to douse the fence again. Another checks the hatch ring, runs a hand along the hinge, nods like it's good hardware. A third takes your statement with the calm of a clerk at the end of a long day, and you give it to them straight, your voice steadying as you hear yourself say the parts that matter. The journalist calls back mid-chaos. You let it go to voicemail and speak anyway, clear and unhurried. A story told for record. 2 men at the hatch, epoxy, a flare, a breach, a confession about making it uninsurable. Sirens answering a bell. You hang up and send a text with one line. Use what you need. It's bigger than my yard. Dawn stains the sky bruise purple, then lifts to a thin wash of gray. The fence stops steaming. The firefighters pack hose with the practiced grace of people who understand endings. A patrol car idles, and an officer notes your scratches, your statement, the cut chain swinging like a metronome. The contractor is gone, but you gave them enough to draw a line. You look at the hatch. The wheel bears new scars. The epoxy is set in an ugly lip you'll have to shave away later, but it's closed. It's intact. You drop the lid gently, turn the wheel until the seal feels right, then set your palm flat on the metal. A quiet promise you don't say out loud. You coil the hose one last time, hands shaking now that you have the right to shake. Birds start up in the fig tree as if nothing happened. The neighborhood breathes. The bell upstairs hangs still. You sit on the porch step, back against the rail, and count to 10, because muscle memory carries you when words don't. At 8, you pause. At 9, you think of the boy under a desk and the man down a ladder. At 10, you decide. You're not just saving a room in the ground. You're keeping a story from being sealed in epoxy and called a hazard. You get up, go inside, and start writing the part only you can tell. The room smells like old varnish and coffee that burned an hour ago. Fluorescents buzz. Folding chairs complain. You take a seat at the front table with your binder, your photos, and the metal tag that still warms fast in your hand. The chairperson gavels once. Condemnation hearing. Agenda item 3. 412 Maple and adjoining lots. The inspector goes first. He stands with a laser pointer and a stack of 8x10s, showing your yard at its wildest. He speaks in code numbers and subparagraphs, the language of hazard. Overgrowth constitutes a fire risk, unsecured structures, reports of unauthorized excavation, potential radiation concerns. You feel the room tilt at the word radiation. A murmur, the kind people make when a story they half remember touches a fear they don't understand. The inspector keeps his face neutral. He isn't your enemy. His job is a lane with rails. He points again. Imminent hazard designation is appropriate. Mrs. Klein's lawyer rises with an armful of binders the thickness of phone books that don't exist anymore. He smiles at the board like he coached them in college. Property values on this block have declined relative to comparable streets. My client represents 32 signatories concerned about an underground hazard. Children, pets, liability. He taps his binder. We request immediate abatement and permanent closure. Mrs. Klein doesn't speak. Her crossed arms do. She won't look at you, but she keeps glancing at the door, as if danger could walk in late and take a seat. Your name is called. You breathe once, twice, and stand with the particular steadiness of a person who has practiced staying calm in fluorescent light. My name is Mateo Rios. I'm the owner. I'm also the person who found what we're here to discuss. You slide the first photo to the document camera. On the screen behind the board, the Civil Defense Manual fills the wall. Bold type, dated 1962. You keep your voice even. I found an intact municipal fallout shelter, Shelter 7, beneath my property. It's sealed, ventilated, and stable. Evidence on site and in documents shows it was built by the City Civil Defense Program and maintained off books by volunteers after funding ended. You hold up the metal tag. The camera catches the stamp. Property of City Department 14. This was attached to infrastructure in the shelter. Department 14 appears in city correspondence until 1969. I have letters between a city engineer and my father, who maintained the site as a volunteer custodian in the 80s. You slide the letters under the lens. Letterhead, signatures, dates. Then the Polaroids, each with a newspaper front page held beside the same bunk. Years spanning like a bridge. These images document continuity and condition. They were stored on site, under the floor, with dates visible. The room's murmur shifts timbre, from fear to curiosity. You keep the momentum, but don't let it run you. I'm not asking you to ignore code. I'm asking for provisional landmark status, with conditions. I'll maintain grounds, implement safety upgrades, and accept controlled public access through a conservation easement. This isn't a hole in the ground. It's a rare, intact municipal shelter that tells a story about how people in this city prepared to help each other. The chairperson leans in. And the radiation concern? You click to the photo of the Geiger counter with the needle resting near the bottom. Background level clicks only. No source material on site. We can schedule professional testing as a condition. The room exhales, a sound you didn't know you were waiting for. You flip one more page in your binder and touch a small recorder on the table. Before I play this, I want to explain why I care. You glance at the board, then at the audience because some of them came for a fight and might settle for a story. My father left me this property and a message that he'd left something important in the shed. I thought he meant tools. He meant a promise. When he was a kid, he hid during sirens. As a grown man, he kept a shelter ready so other people wouldn't have to be alone if the worst came. You press play. A warm, slightly hissed voice fills the room. Your father's, reading in a careful cadence from an old brochure. If you hear the warning, move to your nearest shelter calmly. Help others. Check supplies. Share water. Keep watch. We get through together. The words are simple, almost quaint, but they turn the room from policy to people. You stop the clip before it trembles. You don't look at Mrs. Klein. You look at the chair because you don't need more enemies. You need votes. Dr. Shaw takes the podium next. She places her tablet beside a binder and speaks like she doesn't need to raise her voice to be heard. Anika Shah, Historic Preservation. We conducted a rapid site assessment under a 48-hour stay. Our preliminary finding: the site is a rare, intact municipal civil defense shelter with high integrity. The artifact assemblage, water drums, sanitation kits, manuals, armbands, remains in original context. The Polaroids provide on-site date verification. The tag stamped Property of City Department 14 feet aligns with a defunct internal committee referenced in archived council minutes. She lifts a photo of the laminated map with blue dots. We have reason to believe this shelter is part of a broader network documented in a 1962 City Council survey. That survey appears in field logbooks on site. We recommend provisional landmark status pending full documentation with conditions for safety and maintenance. The inspector frowns, but not like a man picking a fight, like a man fitting new information into a rigid form. Preservation doesn't negate code. Agreed, Dr. Shah says. It guides how we meet it. The contractor in the back, hair combed, collar stiff, clears his throat and steps to the microphone uninvited. There's been confusion, he says. My crew responded to a neighbor's concern about an unsecured hazard. Any suggestion we intended harm is a misunderstanding. Your heart tightens. He looks smaller in daylight, but the script is bigger. You don't move. The journalist rises from the second row, phone in hand. With respect, they say, I have a voicemail recorded at 3:12 a.m. They hold the phone to the microphone. Your own voice plays, steady, laying out the night. Epoxy, flare, breach. A statement about making it uninsurable before morning and the sirens approaching. The room goes quiet in the way that means a story just crystallized. The chairperson's pen stops moving. The contractor looks at his shoes and then at his lawyer, who suddenly finds the ceiling interesting. Mrs. Klein's jaw works like she's chewing something tough. The chairperson taps the gavel softly. Motion on the floor. Grant provisional landmark status to Shelter 7 pending full documentation. Stay condemnation. Require immediate safety measures and a maintenance plan. Schedule a follow-up in 60 days. One board member lifts a hand. Add. Radiation testing to be completed. Access limited to supervised hours. Fencing repaired. Second, another says. All in favor? Hands rise, cautious but visible. Opposed? 2 hands, including one that keeps a neighborhood map in his briefcase. The motion carries, the chairperson says. Mr. Rios, you'll work with preservation on conditions. Inspector, your office will oversee safety compliance. Neighbor concerns remain on record. We expect civility. A small, disbelieving laugh escapes your chest before you catch it. You nod because you can't do more. Dr. Shah gives you a look that says, steady now. Not finish line, just a new mile marker. The inspector meets your eyes and inclines his head a fraction, the way men do when a rule surprised them and didn't break. As the room breaks into its usual end-of-meeting shuffle, the chair adds one last line that lands like a bookend. Let the record show the city acknowledges the historical significance of Shelter 7 as a municipal civil defense site. The words find your bones. You pick up the tag, the letters, the map, and you feel the hinge shift from hope to work. The hallway empties, but your to-do list grows new roots. The stay isn't salvation. It's a contract with chores. You sit with the inspector and Dr. Shah at a plastic table and hammer out terms that feel like a map. Repair the fence within a week. Shave epoxy from the hatch ring under supervision. Add a locking grate at ladder top. Install a vent screen. Monthly community hours, 2 Saturdays each quarter, supervised by a local history group. Signage at the gate, not the curb. A docent roster. Background checks, first aid kit on site. You ask for help that fits into your life. Dr. Shah volunteers a partnership with the Historical Society for docents and training. The inspector offers a list of contractors who won't treat your yard like a problem to be solved by concrete. You add your part. Grounds maintained weekly, rain barrels repositioned. Blackberry brambles cut back to restore sight lines. You sign the easement that protects the bunker while keeping your home, and the city reduces fines under a compliance plan that rewards sweat. Back in the bunker, you open a file drawer you didn't dare touch before the hearing. At the back, an envelope, yellowed and addressed in your father's careful block letters. Mateo, for later. Your hands go slow. Inside, a single-page letter. He writes about drawing a map for an easement and not filing it because he'd be laughed out of the office. He writes about the day he taught you to count to 10 and how he hoped you would use it less than he had. He asks forgiveness without naming a crime. He ends with 4 words that echo the napkin. Leave it better, son. You stand under the chalkboard and let those words join the room. Then you carry the letter upstairs and tuck it behind the napkin on the mantel, the 2 pieces of paper bracing one another like studs in a wall. Work begins the next morning. Volunteers arrive with rakes and shovels, kids in sun hats, retirees in knee braces, a few people you don't know from the forum who kept their curiosity generous. You mow, you rake, you trim the fig tree until it looks like a promise instead of a threat. The neighbor kids ask about the hatch. You tell them it's a story you'll show them soon. Mrs. Klein walks by twice without stopping. On the 3rd pass, she lingers. The flyers are gone from her tote. She watches the kids carry branches and says nothing until she does. If you need water for the volunteers, my hose bib is closer, she offers, voice low. You nod and take the olive branch without squeezing it too hard. The first open house comes like a test you studied for and still doubt. A line forms at the gate. You check the grate you installed at the ladder, count heads, send people down 10 at a time with a trained volunteer who explains calmly how the site came to be. Former civil defense volunteers arrive with stories, palms skimming armbands they haven't seen since their hands were steadier. A quiet man stops at the logbook and laughs under his breath. He points to a penciled signature and says, "Haven't seen that handwriting since I was 20. When the last visitor leaves, the yard feels larger. You coil the rope, lock the grate, close the hatch, and thread the brass key onto a new chain that sits warm against your chest. You stand on the porch where vines once hid the handle, and for the first time the house looks less like a burden and more like a threshold. By evening, the porch trim is clean, the fig leaves shine, and the hatch ring gleams like a coin set flush in earth. A child from down the block lingers, eyes wide. Why did people hide underground? She asks. To feel safe while waiting for the worst to pass, you say. And to help each other while they waited. She nods and runs off, her laughter threading through the quiet. Stay with me for more strange, true-feeling finds beneath ordinary lives. Subscribe for the next story, when a forgotten rail tunnel under a town square forces everyone above to rethink what they built on.